What's good, YouTube? This is Boxingwave, and we are back with another breakdown. This is going to be the breakdown of all breakdowns. All right, this is definitely one of the biggest fights that I've ever had to cover leading up to the fight, man. It's been 4 to 5 years in the making this fight, and it kind of gives me that same vibe that we had leading up to Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather. I remember being here at that time. I remember making a ton of content, making even much more content, because at that time, that's all the fans used to argue about, who was better. And we were talking about, resumes and who did this better than this person and the timing. And this reminds me of it, okay? Obviously, Crawford and Spence are not as famous. They're not as popular as those two, okay? But I think the timing is just a little bit better with this fight due to age and stuff like that. I think it's a little bit better. And these two are considered two of the pound-for-pound greats. They're undefeated. You know what I mean? We don't have to talk about when this fighter got knocked out or anything like that. I can't wait for this fight. I'm excited. It's Saturday. It's really happening. I can't believe it's really happening. Even when they announced the fight was happening, I was still unsure whether or not it was really happening. You know what I mean? And that's what happens with boxing fans, man. We've been through so much trauma when it comes to these kind of fights. Cancellations, reschedules, and all kind of politics getting away and stuff. But it's actually happened. And by this time, you guys see this video, you're going to see the press conference. You're going to see probably the weigh-in too. I will probably make content right before the fight, give you my last thoughts. But this is the official breakdown of the fight. Now, I did two previous videos this week just breaking down all the strengths and weaknesses of these two fighters in detail. All right, I spent a lot of time taking the notes and being able to break that down. So please, if you haven't watched that, please watch those two videos. I'm going to speak more on that here, but I'm not going to go into so much details. I'm going to just kind of really just tell you why I'm picking a winner in my prediction. All right, my final prediction. All right, but please, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. All right, smash the like button if you enjoy the content, and please share the video if you can. Appreciate all the support, the donations, all the comments, all the love you guys been giving me over this fight. All right, as excited as I am for this fight, I think the one thing that's a little unfortunate about this fight is that the loser is going to take a beating from a lot of the fan base, which is wrong, which is not fair, but it is what it is when it comes to boxing. It's a lot of tribalism. It's a lot of emotions. There's a lot of people that are just so hype on a certain fighter, and they love them so much that they tend to trash the other fighter leading up to the fight, which is ridiculous, because in order to boost that fighter and, his accolades, he has to take down another king. They got to take down another great, a generational great. And this is what we'll be seeing this weekend. So leading up to this fight, I've read a lot of comments over the years about this fight. I probably read thousands of comments and tweets and posts on social media. Unfortunately, a lot of the fans can't really just say, you know what, I respect this fighter, but I think he's going to win. You know what I'm saying? I respect this guy. I think he's going to win. We don't really get that. It's more like this guy haven't fought anybody, and I've been hearing that. And it's actually one of the worst things that you can say in boxing. Who has he fought? Who has he fought? Because it's like, all right, well, if he hasn't fought anyone, what's the purpose of them fighting each other? If Terence Crawford wins this fight, Errol Spence will be by far the best fighter on his resume. I have to keep repeating this because I keep reading the stupidest comments, even from people that just listen to me saying that this is ridiculous. This will be the best fighter on his resume. If Errol Spence wins, this is going to be the best fighter on his resume. People are going to always go back to him starting with, he beat Terence Crawford, or Terence Crawford, he beat Errol Spence. They're going to start with that, and then they're going to bring up the other names like Kell Brook or Sean Porter, or being a multi-divisional champion and this, that. They're going to bring up this fight here because this fight is their biggest fight. They'll probably do over a million pay-per-view buys. You know what I mean? They'll do good with the numbers. And it's going to be a historical fight because it's for undisputed at welterweight. It's bigger. I know Terence Crawford has been there already. He's been undisputed before in a previous division, but this is a bigger time. All right, there were better opponents and bigger opponents at welterweight that he had to conquer to get to this point. You know, a lot of fires. You know, leading up, it's 8 fights in the making, and people wanted this fight 8 fights ago for Crawford. People wanted this fight then. I remember because I'm one of those people that were talking about Spence and Bud the moment he moved up to 147. And he went on to win all 8 fights. You know how hard that is to do when, you know, you got 2 guys that everyone is talking about, but they have to keep winning fights because the moment one of them loses, it's going to derail the opportunity of having that mega fight. They made it, but it's rare. You know, I brought this up recently with Joe Joyce. And, you know, and I know it's not as big, but Joe Joyce, who was the mandatory for a long time for one of those titles that Usyk had, Joshua had, he lost on his way there when he was already the mandatory, waiting for other fights to happen, rematches clause and undisputed fights. A lot of guys don't make it to the very end. So you got to give credit to these two for making it here and still remaining undefeated and still being in their prime. You know, Terence Crawford, he's going to be 36 in a few months. You know what I mean? Errol Spence, he's been through a lot, right? Got the car accident. Accident many people would have died from, all right? Had surgery, eye injury, stuff like that. He made it. They both made it here, you know, and they both already had to make sacrifices to get here. So I love it. You know, there's going to be still people talking about, you know, A-side and all this stuff, flipping coins. I've seen like the fight is happening on Saturday, and y'all still talking about fanboy shit. All right, let's talk about the fight, man. Let's talk about it finally. All right, like I said, I already did details on the strengths and weaknesses, but I'm gonna bring some of those up. So Terence Bud Crawford is coming into this fight. He's 35 years old, right? 39 wins with 30 knockouts. All right, he's been fighting since 2008. All right, so he's been fighting. He's an older guy, but he's been fighting for a longer time. 3 divisional champion, and he is a former undisputed champion at 140, and he's currently the WBO champion, and he's had that title since his first fight at welterweight, and he's went on to knock out additional 7 guys since he's been at welterweight. He's fought 8 people at welterweight, and he's knocked all of them out. I keep hearing that he is too small. I think that is the stupidest thing that you can keep saying about a fighter that's been a welterweight for about 5 years now, and he's knocked out every welterweight that he's been in there with. All right, thing is ridiculous, but we'll keep hearing it. You know, Errol Spence is obviously the naturally bigger guy, but Crawford is not too small for the weight. If Crawford loses the fight, it's because Spence is just better. That's it. Stylistically, whatever way you want to put it, it's just better. It's just that simple. Crawford is a welterweight, and he belongs at welterweight, and he has the size to compete with anyone at welterweight. All right. So with that being said, talking about size factors like that, Spence is slightly taller, maybe like an inch. Crawford is slightly has a reach advantage. All right, maybe by an inch or 2. All right. Errol Spence, he's 28 wins with 22 knockouts. He's been fighting since 2012. He debuted it as a pro in 2012. Former Olympian. He is currently the WBC, the IBF, and the WBA title holder at welterweight. All right, he picked up those 3 belts. He's a career welterweight. He's been there the entire time. He hasn't gone up. He hasn't done anything but be a welterweight. Everything he's accomplished was there. Most recent fights against Ugas. He took a strap from Kell Brook, went over to the UK for Kell Brook in his backyard, beat him to win his first title. I believe that was the IBF at the time. And then he beat Sean Porter in a unification match, which is probably the best match for Errol Spence. Or, you know what, is you can go either way, because I personally think the best performance was probably the Kell Brook fight, in my opinion. It's my opinion. But the best fight, the best back and forth fight was the Sean Porter fight. went the distance. It was a split decision. It was a really, really good fight. I enjoyed going back and watching that fight. But he is a 3-belt holder here. All right. And Crawford is coming in with that one title. So this fight will be undisputed, and the winner is going to go on to be, this. Oh, there is a rematch clause here. I don't want to get too much into the rematch thing, but whoever wins this fight, they or loses can activate the rematch clause, and they'll fight again, possibly at 154. We'll see when that time comes. We'll see how this fight goes first before we talk all this rematch stuff, right? If it's close, definitely want to see it. If it's not and someone gets dominated, I'm not going to probably care to see it as much. All right. But I do feel bad for the loser because everybody's going to trash the loser as if they were just some overrated bum this whole time, which is unfortunate. So let's get into a fight. What does Errol Spence have to do to win this one? Well, you know what? Let's be realistic. Let's stay in the lines of realistic things that we know he's capable of doing. And let's state the obvious here. Errol Spence is an extremely durable fighter. All right. He was a high volume puncher. Okay. He has a great jab. He throws a lot of jabs, and he is a great, phenomenal body puncher. The thing is, what you get from the first round in Errol Spence Jr., you're getting in the 12th round. So if you're going to a fight with Errol Spence, you got to understand that you got to deal with a rough night. If you can't hurt him, if you can't knock him out, which no one really has because he's undefeated. He's never lost. He's never been down. He's been hurt and buzzed a few times. But if you can't find a way to slow him down, he's going to keep coming forward. That's Errol Spence in a nutshell. You know what I mean? You can either match his energy, which I felt like Sean Porter was the only one that was doing it, or you can try to find a way to neutralize him. So Errol Spence, phenomenal jab, southpaw. He's going to just keep coming forward, pumping that jab, using it to set up the backhand, the left hand, throw straight left hands, left crosses and all that stuff. And he's going to be countering you with his jab as well. And the thing is, he likes to close distance and beat you down, rough you up physically, just overwhelm you with power, with volume, with body shots and all of that. And he's a slugger. He's more of a slugger. When he's in his bag, he's a dog. This is what everybody's saying. And he's looking to break you. This is what his coach says. This is what Errol says, his man down, all that stuff. This is what they're looking to do. They're not looking to be the more like flashy, or they're not they're not trying to make it look pretty. They want to break you. That's all they want to do. This is what they want to do to Bud. This is what they're expecting to do with Bud. So there's not going to be anything. Let's stick to whatever they have strengths. We might see some surprises here. I don't know. We can't predict that. Maybe we'll see something that we haven't seen from one of the fighters, but we know that Errol Spence is coming in with high volume, all right, and pressure, relentless pressure, all right. As far as defensively, like I said when I did the strengths and weaknesses video, I think defensively Errol is good when he's on the outside. I think once he starts to open up, yeah, he leaves himself open for some counters and stuff like that. We'll talk more about that when we get to Bud. But I think that he's not bad defensively when it's at a slower pace. When he's fighting behind a jab, it's not as bad. You might get some feints in there. Not much of a counter puncher, outside of the step back left hand. I haven't seen much counters from him. But again, it's all about the volume for him. Yes, there's opportunities to hit him, but when you're so durable and you could take a good shot and still come without slowing down, I think that's part of the reason why a lot of these fighters, outside of Sean, because Sean is a great pressure fighter and he's a great athlete and he has great phenomenal condition. So he was able to match Spence a lot in their fight. But everybody else, they would hit Spence with a good shot, and that'll be it. They'll back off and admire their work, where Spence is right on their ass. And you hit him with a good shot. It's like the Kell Brook fight. You hit him with a good shot. Or Ugas, you hit him with a good shot. You back up, and as you're waiting to reset and go again, Spence is on your ass already, and he might hit you double up or triple up or what you just landed on you. So that's the thing with Errol Spence, not a lot of fighters had much success. They had moments, but they weren't able to keep going. You know what I mean? They just wasn't able to do it. And I think this is why Errol has had so much success. Now, as far as Terence Bud Crawford and what he would have to do in order to be him being that, Terence Crawford is a slicker guy. He is he's a phenomenal athlete. He's probably the better defender between the two. He's gonna be the guy that is gonna try to be evasive. What you need to do is you need to shut that down. What do you have to do? Don't give him time. He's been a slow starter. Why? Because he preferred to see what you got early. He likes to see what you got. So use that time to not be overly aggressive, because you don't want to be lunging and leaving yourself open for openings and stuff like that. So you want to press him, but you want to press him with intelligence. You know what I mean? You want to use that jab. Use the jab. Use the jab. That's your first thing. Because at the end of the day, being that you're high volume, if this goes to the decision, you want the judges to see that you're active. Crawford is not as high volume as Spence. All right, he's more selective, more accurate with his shots. He's looking for the counter a little bit more. So he's not leading as much. He's not throwing as much. He doesn't like the waist punches. So being that Spence, you want to be as active as possible, but with intelligence, especially early. All right, use that jab. Get yourself on the inside. Crawford is going to be looking to tie up and turn and step around you. You got to pivot, follow him. On his exit, throw those body shots on Crawford's way out. You got to be a little bit careful with Crawford, because he can throw punches and counters while on the move. So you got to be a little cautious of that on your way out. Got to keep those gloves up, all right? Being able to duck underneath some of the shots that Crawford is going to throw at you. But you got to stay on his ass no matter what. You're going to take some shots. We've seen that he's durable. I don't think he's going to be, up to this point, he's looked like some indestructible force that can't be stopped. But if he is, he's going to have to continue that by keeping on Crawford. You got to mentally and physically drain Crawford, make him feel like he's too much, and that's what it goes for when he says he's going to break him. This is what he's have to do. You got to keep throwing punches, all right? Use intelligence, all right? Obviously, don't set yourself to get countered, but he has to do what he's good at. We can't be unrealistic here and just start thinking that Errol Spence is going to be slick and he's going to be missing all these, making him miss. No, all right? He's going to have to be high volume, because for his sake, throwing the same amount of punches as Crawford, you're most likely going to lose the fight if you're not throwing way more than him, all right? Either on the cards, or either if it doesn't go to distance, you have to be more, high volume. All right, so you want to come out, use the jab, close distance, go to the body, continuously slow this guy down, do what he normally does, because when the later rounds come, all right, and Crawford usually is better in the later rounds as well, but in a different way, where the momentum is picking up because his opponent is usually slowing down because they can't take the beating. We saw that in his last fight against Ugas, that it was just too much. Ugas was doing decent in the earlier rounds with the counters and stuff, but he couldn't maintain, that same volume that he had early. And you could see that he was just clamming up in a high guard. He really didn't have anything offensively. All he could do in the second half of the fight was really protect himself. All right. So with that being said, you want to break Crawford down. You want to break him down to a point where when the later rounds where Crawford is normally shining, he's already worn down by the beating he's been taking, the amount of punches he's been taking. And the punches could be all over the place, not just the body, not just the head, but to his arms, doing things that's going to make him not be able to move so laterally, you know what I mean? He's consistently moving. You want to make him more, cemented in placed in where he can't move, and he's not going to move as much because he'll be right there in front of you. All right. So he'd be an easier target. So with that being said, Spence has to stay active. He has to stay active, and he has to do exactly what he's been doing his whole career. Breaking fighters, and he has to do it here. Crawford is naturally smaller. Crawford hasn't been hit to the body by someone as like a Spence. He has to take, and you know what? Make it your kind of fight. Don't let Crawford dictate and slow down the pace. Make it your fight where, what was the point I was about to say? Try to get Crawford to engage with you. Try to get him to engage with you. Now, in some instance, it may play as an advantage to Crawford, but Crawford's not high volume. And then Crawford gets in these places where he likes to engage and exchange. Get him to do that. You know what? That'll give you more opportunities to land some big shots. And being that you're the bigger and most people see you as a more durable guy, get him to fight your kind of fight. Let him go to war with you. Don't let him be smart. All right? You take that away by being pressure. Listen, a lot of great, phenomenal boxers lost to the pressure fighters. Pressure bust pipes. So Spence have to enforce that on Bud Crawford. You know what I mean? For Terence Crawford, he has to do what he's always done. Okay? But the difference is that he can't start out as slow, and he can't afford to make some of the errors that he has. Neither one of them can. All right? Crawford, who's the slicker fighter here between the two. He is the switch hitter here. He's the more versatile fighter. I think he's a more technically sound. I think he can do everything that all of these fighters can do. He has the punch and power. He has the ability to counter and fight on all these different stances and show us different defenses and stuff like that. What he needs to do is be smarter. All right. But he needs to throw his punches and land these punches and not get hit as much. All right. Crawford, we talk about conditioning with Spence. I've never seen Bud Crawford look tired. But I've never seen him get pressured on a level that he may get pressured here. What he wants to do is slow down the pace, make things go his way. All right. And how you do that? Well, Spence has a phenomenal jab. What do you want to do? You want to start out by taking his jab from him, by countering his jab with yours. Okay? Whether or not he's going to start out fighting as orthodox or southpaws, I don't know. I've seen him start out as a southpaw. I think he's better as a southpaw, but he can literally do everything he can as a righty as well. So I really don't know righty, lefty. I don't know how he's going to start. There's advantages to both. Obviously, if he starts off as a righty, their lead hands are going to be there. So it's going to be, a lot of throwing the jab over the other person's jab or countering the jab with a jab. Terence likes to do a lot with that lead hand. You know what I mean? He's going to be throwing jab feints. He's going to be feinting. He's going to be moving it all the way around. He's going to be using it as a blinder to throw shots to the body. He's going to be doing a lot more with that lead hand. All right. But whether he fights out of the southpaw position or orthodox is unsure of. I'm sure at the final, in the later rounds, or whenever he gets comfortable enough to do so, he's going to go to southpaw. He normally does it. I just don't know if he's going to start or not. I'm expecting him to start as a righty first because I think Crawford likes to see what his opponent can do as a righty, and this is why he switches off as a southpaw. I think when he's trying to figure you out, he likes to do it from an orthodox position. And then even though things will be different because when they're both southpaws, he'll have a clear lane to get hit in the head with jabs. And so would Spence, of course. But I just don't know what he's going to do. I don't know what he's thinking. He is really cerebral when he's there in the ring. So I don't know how he's going to start. But all I know is that Crawford needs to slow the pace down and you got to do things that's going to make Spence not throw as much. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of that has to do is landing big counters respectable counters that's going to buzz him enough to say, okay, I'm not going to just recklessly come in here. All right. Also, do those little tricks that you do. You know what I mean? And what I mean by that is when you're tying up, he's a guy that ties up, but he's a former wrestler. You know what I'm saying? He has a lot of strength. He's fought bigger guys like Jeff Horn, who was really reckless and really aggressive, was able to tie them up and lock them and step around them while exiting. You know what I mean? He's just not, he can do it anyway. He can tie you up and lock you in. He can tie you up momentarily and push you off of him. And he can tie you up and while tied up, step around you. You know what I mean? Do little things that can get you a little bit off balance. All right. So Spence, even though Spence is phenomenal at like strength, he's very strong. And normally these guys are forced to tie up with him because they're being overwhelmed. Spence is great. He's strong. He's hard to deal with because he's trying to fight you out of the clinch. Crawford is great at controlling the opponents while tied up. All right. I'm very interested to see how that's going to play out in this fight. I'm very interested to see, and that's going to be a key factor for both fighters. You know what I mean? For different reasons, obviously, but you got to do those things to throw them off. You know, when you're in close range, use that head control that you normally do. You know what I mean? Leaning on them. Do things that's going to keep Spence from, you know, you want to smother his punches a little bit and just keep him off balance. Throw him off. Slow things down. And then go back out. And then go back to doing what you're doing. You know, slipping jabs or rolling them, whatever you decide to do. You know, he might fight out of a high guard a little bit just to counter. You know that Canelo does that thing where he fights out of high guard and it's kind of like a trap. You touch the guard, he's countering you with a left hook. Crawford does like those little things, but he might switch it up. Fight out of the Philly shell, roll punches, hit you with counters with the short shots. You want to create all the offensive opportunities and tools that you have because Crawford has more. All right. He's not as high volume, but he has more offensive gifts. And he wants to use that to advantage. But will it slow down Spence? We really don't know. We really have to wait and see. But use all the tools that you have offensively because you have all of these angles. You know, you have all these skills that we all talk about. We all talk about these things. Use them all in order to slow him down. But you got to be ready to deal with it because this is the biggest key to this fight. If Crawford can't hurt him, if Crawford can't land shots, that's going to make Spence slow down or think about just rushing in recklessly. You know what I mean? It's going to be a rough night because if this guy doesn't respect your power, he's going to just keep coming. You know what I mean? And even though Crawford is good defensively, he likes to get hit. So he has to play it smart, make sure he doesn't get reckless, taking unnecessary punishment that I was just talking about in his strengths and weaknesses. It's like when Crawford is not on his A game, he takes unnecessary shots. He's been hurt, Buzz. People talk about Gamboa. People talk about Kavaliauskas. People talk about exchanges where he was taking unnecessary punishment. You know what I mean? We've seen it. So in this fight, you have to be a little bit smarter because Spence is a puncher. You know what I mean? People going back and forth, who hits harder and all that. It doesn't matter when a guy just keeps hitting you all the time. And if you go into these exchanges where you guys are basically phone boofing and stuff like that, you don't want to be leaving out of an exchange with Errol Spence taking more punishment than you did to him. You know why? Because he wants that kind of fight. You know, he got some video years back that he posted where he's in the street just going bare knuckle with some dude that he knows. Some guy that's much bigger than him. Some guy that's probably like a heavyweight or something. I don't know. I haven't seen a video in a long time. But with that being said, like this guy likes that kind of fight. He wants that kind of fight. That's the only way he's trying to win. So you have to be smarter, which he normally is. He is very intelligent. I just think that with Crawford, he likes to take a few rounds, figure out, see exactly what he wants to do. And in those periods, he likes to go into these little exchanges and wars with fighters and get hit unnecessarily, you know? And I say unnecessarily because when he's at his best, we know how phenomenal he looks offensively and defensively. No, he's not Floyd Mayweather. He's not him. But there's moments where we've seen defensively Terence Crawford look phenomenal. You know what I mean? So he looked elite. As far as this generation, he looked like one of the best. And he has the athleticism to do it. So I don't want to say, I want to say unnecessarily don't take punishment. And you don't need to take. You know what I mean? So as far as my prediction, I think that in order for Errol to win, he's going to have to be able to walk through what Crawford is dishing out. He's going to have to be able to walk through it. You know, whether it's by knockout, whether he wins by knockout or by decision. He has to be consistent with volume because that's what the judges are going to want. That's what the viewers are going to want. All right? They want to see a lot of punches thrown. And even if you're not as accurate, they want to see you being the aggressor. Spence has to be the aggressor in order to win this fight. All right? On points, whatever. We know he's gone a distance with fighters, but he usually wins because he is just more consistent as far as being the aggressor. So he's going to have to do that. All right? If he can take Crawford's power, because Crawford has power. And I know you guys say he's too small, but he's a KO artist. All right? 39 wins with 30 KOs. And I don't know, maybe 10 KOs in a row. I don't know. He's been knocking people out since 140. He knocks most people fight out. He's knocked out most of the better fighters that he's fought. With that being said, if Spence could withstand his power and keep pressuring him, he'll win the fight. He'll win the fight. He might just be too much for Crawford. If Crawford can't hurt him, if Crawford can't get Spence to respect him, he'll be too much for Crawford on the cards or with inside the distance. You know what I mean? He'll be too much. If Crawford wins, I expect Crawford to buzz Spence. I expect Crawford to slow Spence down, take advantages of his weaknesses. Spence, like the lunge in, throw jabs, counter him, counter him, make him pay for whatever mistakes he did, but keep moving laterally. You know what I mean? Crawford winning means just outboxing him, but doing it in a way where he's winning sometimes some portions of the fight where the fight gets rough. He has to win those opportunities too, because on the cards, he has to look good. He has to look like, yes, this guy is being the aggressor, but I'm coming out of these exchanges with landing the heavier blows. All right. Back Spence up. I think people will be surprised of the outcome here. I'm picking Terence Crawford. I think there are going to be periods where you're going to be shocked that Spence, he's not going to look as dominant. Some of you are going to say that he's going to look like he's drained. Some of you are going to be surprised that there's going to be a point where Crawford is going to be walking him down. All right? Because the counters will be too much. The counters and the combinations that follow up with those counters is going to be too much for Spence. You're going to be surprised because you're never going to see Spence in that way. But there's going to be a time in this fight. I don't know when. I don't know if it's going to be early. I don't know if it's going to be in the later rounds. It really depends how the fight is going. But there's going to be a period where Terence Crawford is going to take it to another level. And when he does, he's going to be hitting Spence with clean, flush shots. And Spence is not going to be returning fire, or he's not going to be landing. Crawford is going to be slipping and landing big shots. And once he lands that one hit, he's not going to back. He's not going to stop. Spence is going to try to duck and move out of the way and back up to reset it. So Bud is going to be following up with that big shot with combinations. and they're going to be precise, and they're going to be landing. We're going to see Bud go into his body and open it up and creating. You're going to see something you've never seen in a Spence fight. I just think Crawford is too talented. And I think that even though he's at risk, it's a major risk here. Because I feel like Crawford has to knock him out. I know people feel like he's going to get robbed because it's a PBC thing. I feel like Crawford needs to knock him out, or at least try to, in order to win this fight. Because you got to hurt Spence in order to stop him. You got to hurt him in order to slow him down. And if you can't do it, you're going to have a tough time winning. But I think Crawford is more than capable of doing it. He's going to go into a different space at some point. I think Spence is going to do well, going to the body, throwing jabs. I think going to the jab and following up, jab into the body and following it up with the backhand up top will be his money shot. I think he's going to land some big shots, clean shots. And I think there's going to be some drama in the fight early. I think Crawford is going to get hurt. I think he might even get knocked out. But there's going to be a point in this fight where Crawford says, enough with the games. I'm talking about 6th round against Sean Porter. I'm thinking about the last round against David Avanesian. These gloves are busted. Oh, okay, I got to hurry up and get you out of here. Now I'm going to walk you down, and I'm going to punish your body until you open up, and then I'm going to knock you out. I'm talking about Cav Velasquez when he hurt him. Reminds me of Shane Mosley and Floyd Mayweather. Floyd got hurt, and what happened in the next round? Pissed him off, and then he beat the hell out of Shane Mosley for the remaining rounds in that fight. This is the moments that I'm talking about. Bud has that trigger, and he's going to activate it at some point in this fight. And it might be after a big shot. Or he might come out good. But as far as consistency, he's consistently fought that way, where fight was competitive until it wasn't competitive no more. And there's going to be a moment in that fight where he's going to take over. I have Terence Crawford winning by knockout. I think he will knock out Errol Spence. I think he needs to, because I think he needs to hurt Errol bad in order to get him out of there. Errol is too high volume. And if Crawford can't really hurt him, it's going to be hard to win the fight by knockout or on the cards. Okay? But I think Crawford is going to be knocking out Spence. And I'm very confident in it. I feel good about it. I have much respect for Errol Spence. I think outside of Bud Crawford, I think he's by far the best welterweight. But I think Crawford is too much. And I think he's the kryptonite of Errol Spence. And I think Crawford is going to take over and win this fight. All right. So, again, please subscribe to the channel. This is going to be my final breakdown. Of course, probably make more video. One last thought video after watching the weigh-in, the presser, all the final interviews and stuff like that. I will be here Saturday. Check me out. We'll be live. And I'll have an open forum on Saturday for anyone that wants to join in and give us their views on the fight. I would love to hear you guys, read your comments. I've been reading your comments, but on Saturday, before the actual live commentary video, I would like to have you guys come up, jump in, give us your thoughts on who wins the fight. This wasn't gonna be a video about resumes. I know some people just can't remove themselves from who fought who better, and Sean did this, and and Kell Brook this. I've shut that down in previous videos. Please check those out that I did this past week. Resume talk. The fight is happening in a couple of days. All right. So it doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter. Let's talk about what these fighters can do in the ring. And I have Crawford winning by knockout. All right. So I'm out of here, man. I'll see you guys on Saturday. Peace. Have a good one.